basically we're going to go over diagnosing whiteheads, and to categorize this, we have abiotic and biotic. So your abiotic is not caused by a living organism, Pretty simple, but starting there, and then we'll kind of build. And your biotic is your living organism. So we're going to talk first about our abiotic cause, and we have frost injury could be a contributing factor. So when we have freezing temperatures after jointing, and there's different factors that can contribute to the level of severity that we might see. So obviously we have, if it's lower temperatures, that can cause, how long was that low temperature? Was it just for 2 hours, or was it for 8 hours? We have depressions in the fields, and those are going to be lower spots. So we're going to have those lower temperatures hanging there, which we could see. Soil moisture can also be a contributing factor. Thinking differently as like, like cranberries or other crops, usually they're spraying water to help warm it up. So sometimes if it could be drier, that could be actually, more frost injury that we could see. So as a whole, we'll kind of try to wrap up is our field distribution. So kind of looking at what our field distribution is to then determine the causes. So of this field distribution, you're usually going to be seen more in those lower spots where the cold air settles. What this could look like, we could have burnt leaves, twisted flag leaf, or obviously bleached heads of what we're discussing today. So we also could have hail for abiotic. That's pretty simple, so I'm not going to go through hail, but usually it's more of the subtler cases of hail that we could see those bent or twisted pictures like such. So could be another thing, but usually we can know that there could have been hail in the area. So next up, I'm going to talk about, so go to the other side, biotic, so living organisms, so thinking insects and diseases. And for insects, we're going to talk about the wheat stem maggot, wheat stem sawfly, and the Hessian fly to give you an overview. So for one, the wheat stem maggot, it is a fly, and the larvae is going to be the one that's actually going to be doing the damaging. So it's pretty small. It's 1/16 inch, as you can see here. And I'll adjust the screen since I'm the first one to go. The larvae is also seen here, and this is actually frass or insect poop right here. The adult fly, this is what this looks like. We have the 3 stripes on the thorax right here, and that helps to distinguish it from others, as well as when they're alive, we have bright green eyes, or dark, and they look dark when they're dead. What does a crop damage look for wheat stem maggot? We can see some of these just scattered heads around that are bleached or white. So we have that larvae so all larvae in the diptera and the flies have rasping mouth parts. So that's going to be tearing the heads and causing the white stem. So we have some more of an isolated, as shown, isolated but scattered, and the white heads will be bleached below the stem. So that's another indicator of where is that white head being? Is it the whole plant, or is it right below the stem? So let's go out to the field. If you pull on your stem and it easily pulls out and it looks like it's chewed, then wheat stem maggot is the most likely cause. So right here, this stem has been pulled out because it's on another leaf there, but so that's more of a jaggedy piece. There. So wheat stem maggot. Next up, wheat stem sawfly. We have, it's a hymenoptera, so it's actually falls into more of those bees and wasps looking one. We have the larvae right here, and it's well developed, head and capsule, as you can see right here. And it's about 1/2 inch long. So so when we cut off the stems and then we look, we can see the characters, the pupae, pre-pupae in there, and it has more of that S shape. And then our adult looks like this, and kind of more of a slender shape. It's about 1 inch long, and the females are going to be laying those eggs, which are then causing the damage that we see. So we have the larval tunneling into the stem, we have lodging, reduced yield, and the stunted head with a few kernels that could be, lower test weight or such. Now on this, we go out in the field, we're going to pull it on the affected stem, they're breaking. And then we're going to look for actually stems at the base. So this, where are they pulling? Are they pulling just top or further down? And then we can actually, if they did, I'll pull up, take your knife, run down the knife, and see if we see any grass a little bit lower. So as just kind of an overview, we do have 1 generation per year. So this is what we're looking at. We have adults that are emerging mid-June. They're living for 10 days. And our emergence window is 3 weeks. So then they are going to deposit our eggs on the weak stem. They're going to continue to develop into larvae and then mature. They're overwintering. And then this is where they're actually, so that's the whole point. We want them to they lodge over and then they're hanging out in the residue. So that's our wheat stem sawfly life cycle. And what is our distribution? Our distribution, we have, so this is 22, 23, and this is from our IPM scouts for Janet Canodal. We have a more actually in the western versus here in the northeast. So we're likely not, right? We say, oh, this never happens here, and then you have that one off what it is. So typically this is not going to be our first thought, but it could be one of our thoughts for diagnosing whiteheads. Right. Continuous wheat and drought favors wheat stem sawfly infestation. So I know when I was down in Nebraska doing some work with wheat curl mite, it's that solid stem, which really makes a difference for varieties if we're having a major concern for this insect. And obviously no-till will kind of help favor that because you're not disturbing their homes. So always give and takes with every management thing, but you are the farmer and you can make that all of what you wish. All right, Hessian fly. So coming from Ohio, being in Nebraska for a little while, and then North Dakota, oh, we don't really have the Hessian fly. Well, we're actually seeing some more. So that's why we're talking about it. Usually further south or other states, you always hear about, oh, plant after the fly-free date. So when you hear that term, it's always talking about the Hessian fly. So for example, like where I'm from, we have winter wheat. So then there's dates that we'll plant after, Hessian fly in Ohio or Nebraska, other, states around. So Hessian fly, we've actually been seeing it, and I'll show you the distribution here in a moment. It's kind of like a mosquito looking one. It's 1/8 inch long brown fly. And this is actually going to be that flaxseed casing. So we'll get on to this slide. So we have 2 generations. Yep, 2 generations per year. We have the fly. It's going to lay the eggs. And so this would be more of like that fall. And there's multiple hosts of a Hessian fly. And then we're developing still later in the fall. And then this is kind of what we're seeing later on is, it's called flaxseed because it kind of looks like a flaxseed. And this is going to be further down at the base, it's lower on the plant. And then you kind of split. So if you see some lodging in the fields recently, this is something to also look down and see if we find this. So this could be your fall, and then you have your second generation. So you could see this, I guess, in the spring or then later summer. On that note. So spring planted wheat, obviously we don't grow winter wheat, so we have our spring, we could have stunted wheat due to the larval feeding that we've seen. And Anita Chamamilla up at Langdon Research Center has been looking more into this insect and doing some trapping, which I'll show in a minute. So we got stunting and yellowing plants, and also we can see lodging from this insect in the late summer. Okay, so 23, I believe, is the first year that we started doing this. Again, this comes from our IPM traps with our IPM scouts, and also published in the crop and pest report. We had a number of traps, and it was in 30 counties. So we see Ramsey, Northeast, we're getting into our orange and red triangles up here. So 50 to exceeding 99. Now 2024, we had, I think it's 27 traps, and we had an increase from 2023. Again, our key areas that we're looking at is the Northeast. So we're seeing this increase in some areas. So to be on one side of this, research is good, but we also need to figure out how we can apply the research, right? So this is where my eyes are like soft. I am so glad we have IPM tracking. But what do these numbers tell us right now? Like, that's where I'm like, how do we utilize this data? And this is where, being newer in this area, we can't really say how does, if we go out, we have these traps, and then we get our cropping system, what they did in that field, and then go out and then further survey the areas in the field, then we could attempt to kind of paint the picture a little bit better. So I'll just be frank with you on the numbers, because that's where I'm like, let's not get freaked out about the numbers, because how do we actually relate this to what's going on in the field? So there's my disclaimer on numbers and what this really means. But this is, again, something to look at if we have white heads. So we got our insects out of the way. So we're going to move on to our diseases, which usually we can think that diseases. We have our primary, everyone hates Fusarium head blight. And we also have root rots that can be different causes. Fusarium head blight, also scab. We all probably know this pretty well. Fusarium species, we have prolonged leaf wetness as the major cause, and their high humidity. That's going to be the issues. And it can also occur at cooler temperatures when we have when it's persisting longer than 72 hours. Obviously, depending on when we planted this year, we had some windows that were better versus others for Fusarium head blight. So what our sign, which would be the actual like spore, or that of our Fusarium head blight, is we're looking actually at these blacker spots. So those are going to be those spores that are going to help for next year. So characteristics of Fusarium diagnosis is usually this like pinkish orange color that we can see on the heads. Everyone probably knows this as it's going to be harboring in our crop residue. Yes, fusarium head blight is the asexual stage, because then the other stage that it can host is gibberellal, which is that of corn. So don't get into the diagnostic of fungal and classification. It can get really challenging in the literature between asexual and sexual as they've changed names. So we have residue. That residue is going to stay in there, flowering in your small grains, or right when it's heading for barley, and we see then the infected spikes there. Abundant inoculum, that prolonged leaf wetness is going to be your primary culprits. And usually this is more isolated. This is a susceptible variety of durum, so it's a little bit closer, distribution that we're seeing for that. Okay, so for this, if we're pulling the head, like the head shouldn't just chop off. So that is a way to then differentiate more from like an insect of the wheat stem maggot versus fusarium. But fusarium is typically, we've seen it before, we usually know what it is. Root rots. So we have multiple pathogens that can be the cause of this. We have different fusarium species, the other bipolaris one, and we have stress areas of the field that's really going to be promoting this disease. So that could be too much water or too little water. Nutrient imbalances, insect injury, anything to kind of get a little bit more stressed, we would likely could see that. Our early infections can result in kind of that poor stand as we're seeing here. There are fungicides that could go on, seed treatments, fungicides that could go on the seed to help as well. So this is where we are, continuing to, let's go to the field. Let's look, what's our distribution, and let's pull up the plant. Does the whole plant come up? That's a characteristic that you might have a root rot going on. So, all of these roots should really be white, not darkened, as we see here. And also we see some lesions up here on these stems. So those are what we're going to look for our root rots. So we're going to probably have that poor tillering and premature ripening, right? Going back to the white heads, what's causing the white heads. So those are our root rots. So regarding like going out in the field, what's our field distribution? We can have a couple, and usually diseases are more patchy versus uniform. If you're going out in the field and there's a uniform distribution and it's straight lines, it's probably something man-made versus looking at your insects or your diseases. So looking at our heads, we can have them premature white, and then our roots should have green, at your base versus any kind of whitening. That means we're obviously not getting nutrient uptake or so forth there. Again, similar picture here. So kind of an overview, the general outline of, all right, we're going to go out to the field. We're going to diagnose this. Is this more of a abiotic? Is this frost, hail, weird things with temperature? Could this be, I didn't include this, but could it also be, is there some kind of herbicide or something that's, residual from last year or something of that nature also could fall under to your abiotic. So biotic is your living organism, your insects, your diseases. Again, we covered our wheat stem maggot, our wheat stem softfly, our Hessian fly, fusarium head blight, and our root rot species that can cause. Sorry to go over and over, but over and over helps to think through. So again, kind of closing it up, what's our field distribution? Are we isolated spots, patches? And then you go out in the field, when you pull it, what's happening? Is it just, you know, the head a little bit further down, or it's the base of the plant, or is it root issues? Do we see lodging? So multiple causes, how to think through of what could be those causes. So that is all I got for you guys. Happy to take questions